Frequency series premiere. Now, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this first episode. I was excited to watch this show because I thought the trailer was actually pretty interesting. It's not something that I hadn't exactly heard. It was different because of the radio thing, and it's like, it's specifically this character's dad and stuff like that. And I was like, alright, I'm interested. I like the story. I like the main actress because she was in the show called The Tomorrow People, which every chance I get, I bring that show up because CW canceled it. I think that was like 2 years ago now, but I really like that show. So it was cool to see that she was in the new show. She was also in The Flash. For those of you who might not watch it, she's been in that a couple episodes. But I was like, all right, I like her as an actress, and I like the premise for the show. And going into it, I thought it would be a bit simpler. I was like, all right, she's talking with her dad. Her dad died. I think I only saw like the original first trailer, so I didn't know that he died like as a cop or anything. I thought it was just like, oh, he died, and it was just like, all right, it's still kind of interesting, but it made it more entertaining that he died, as a cop. And not only, as you go through the episode, it's like, all right, he died during this mission, and he was a dirty cop. It was what, kind of what we thought. And he was killed when this sting went wrong, and people didn't know it was a sting because, of course, it wasn't meant to be on record. And then, as everything continues to go on, we find out that he was completely set up. He was meant to die because the other cops around him were actually on payroll with the other criminals. So it's like all this setup and all these other things, he was meant to be killed. So he's outed to the criminals by the people he thought were his friends and co-workers. And so he's supposed to be killed, and fortunately his daughter is able to save his life. They have the back and forth. And I really like the way they played it, because I thought it really would focus a lot on, the present. I thought it would be, this is a woman who lost her father a long time ago, has always grown up with him being a crooked cop and all this other crap that she kind of just didn't like him for. She kind of hated him for all these bad things that she thought she knew about him. And the way it played out when she first talks to him, and it's like, she realizes that that's her dad, and he's like, you're saying all this stuff. It goes from the present to the past, and we see like his whole day. And when he gets to the baseball game, it's like, okay, and he's still kind of messing around, and he thinks it's just she just had like a crazy prediction. And then things get really crazy for the both of them, and I like that. I like the fact that it actually, we get to see both sides of things. They do the Nightingale murders, which I knew were going to come into play once they mentioned them. I was like, okay, they're jumping back and forth, and I like the way all that stuff played out. I thought it actually worked really well. And everything wasn't perfect by the end of the episode. And I figured it wouldn't be perfect. I figured there'd be some other stuff where it's like, oh, this happened or that happened. But the way it ends was so bad for her character that it kind of blew my mind. I was like, alright, I expected some stuff to be different. It's like, not everything's perfect like she thought it would be on My Dad's Alive. She comes back, and she's talking with her childhood friend, and it's like, no, your dad didn't get murdered, but he died 5 years ago. And then we find out that her mom was the one who ends up dying 20 years ago, and she just disappeared, and it ended up being the Nightingale killer. And I'm curious how that was supposed to play out, because when they do the flashback where instead of it being the nurse, it's her mother, she's still there with her mother. So I was kind of curious. I was like, how is that supposed to play out? And maybe it was because she wasn't alone in that moment. The guy chose her. Like, okay, it'll be her, but he just did it, at a different time. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, so they made it where her mother died. The Nightingale killer, also based on what they showed at the end, continued to kill a ton of different people compared to just that one nurse. So that I thought was an interesting change too. They made it where he's still an active killer. And I don't know if it's supposed to be like, a copycat killer or something like that, but I thought that was interesting. I was like, alright, that makes a totally different change for this killer, as well as the fact that both her parents are gone now. She's not with the man that she was possibly going to marry because she found the ring in the beginning of the episode. All of that's changed. Both her parents are dead, and now she has to figure out how does she basically make the future, make her life the way she really wants it to be, with her father surviving, where she actually gets to see him in present day because she remembers both timelines. But she has to find a way to, I don't know if that'll actually end up being a thing where it's like, okay, this is what happened on this day, so you stop. But also with the way that it kind of plays out, it's almost like she'd never stop having to say, do this or do that, because every time she has a day, he has a day. So they're, as she says, time is parallel. So it's really interesting, because even if she says like, oh, this happened or that happened, until he was actually alive, because you know it's TV, so at somehow something's gonna be wrong where she has to keep correcting it. But I just like the way that played out, because like if things just kept going wrong, you'd have to retroactively fix it and hope that it, you know, the person just lived until the present day. Like if they died yesterday, you'd have to be like, crap, all right. So this is what's happening, and all these other little things, and also him being in that car accident, she would have to wait, you know, like 20 years or whatever, because she doesn't know how that played out. She remembers it, but she'd have to remember that for like another 20 years. And it was just interesting. I was like, all right, that's cool, because that's not something she'd stop currently. That's just something she would have to remember, unless she's like, hey, don't take this road on this day, and then hopefully he would actually write that down and keep that note forever, and that would be able, you know, that would be how she saved his life. But I like the way it played out. I was like, all right, pure chaos. She saved her dad. He still ends up dying at a different point in time. Her mom is also dead now. The Nightingale killer is a big thing, and her fiance is no longer, or boyfriend is no longer her boyfriend, so she's got to fix all this stuff, save her mom, stop the Nightingale killer, which I thought they were going to do in this episode. I thought she would save her dad as well as stop the Nightingale killer. But she has to do both things and, you know, save her mom and continue that, you know, back and forth, because I don't know how often things are going to change, like, per episode, but every little thing has, you know, a domino effect, so who knows how all this stuff is going to play out. But I'm excited to see where this show goes. It's actually, I found that it was based off of, like, a movie from 2000, which I thought was interesting, but I like the premise for it, and so far, I really enjoy the execution. I think it's pretty cool. I like sort of the split between the present and the past, and we actually get to see a lot of what the dad is doing and how, you know, she tells him something that happens, and he's like, okay, this happened and that happened. You know, I have to figure out how to really make this work, like what he does at the end of the episode where he has the gun, and that's ultimately what saves his life, because he kills the passenger who shoots him in that opening scene. So I like the way it played out. I really enjoyed this first episode, of course. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about this premiere, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, I want to know, you know, are you guys going to continue to follow this show? Do you feel like the execution was done well? Are you excited based on, you know, how it's done, because they, you know, go day by day? I think that's actually a pretty cool concept, where whatever time it is for her, that's the exact time it is for him, and it's not like, oh, she's here and he's just in the past or whatever. It's like he actually has to live day by day just like she does. So she has to recount, like, this is the exact time here, and she knows that if she tells him something too late, then it already happened in the past. And I think that's a cool concept too. It's not just, okay, I've learned this is what happens. It's like she's, even when she learns something new, she's on a time crunch, just like in the episode where she found out the information, but technically it was too late because he was already on that mission. And fortunately, she already warned him earlier, and he actually trusted her, so he put that extra gun there. And I thought that was cool. I was like, that was another reason why I really enjoyed it, because it wasn't just, I can manipulate time and, you know, tell secrets from the future. It was like, no, I learned this about, you know, something that happened 20 years ago, but it happened basically an hour from now. Even though it's 20 years later, it's still an hour from now for both of us, and I have to find some way to warn him immediately, and I can only do it using this old ham radio. So I thought that was a cool way to do it, an interesting way to kind of have, well, I can't say time travel, but, you know, time talks or something that sounds better than that. But of course, I enjoyed it. Like I said, though, I want to know how you guys felt about the execution for their communication and just how the episode played out in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.